HighBridge, a division of Recorded Books, presents The Apartment, a novel. By Ana Menéndez, read by Whitney Dykhouse. There is no face that is not on the verge of blurring and fading away, like the faces in a dream. Everything in the world of mortals has the value of the irrecoverable and contingent. Jorge Luis Borges. The dead, after all, do not walk backwards, but they do walk behind us. They have no lungs and cannot call out, but would love for us to turn around. They are victims of love, many of them. Anne Carson. A serpent coils through the underbrush of palmetto and cocoa plum. It's a still, dry afternoon, so the woman hears the creature before she sees it. A crackle of brown leaves, like a fire starting. She stops, instinctively raises her basket of turtle eggs. Death wouldn't be so bad as the loss of the evening meal. She scans the mesh of roots. A flash of red and yellow, and the woman goes cold. But then the small bands of black slide into view as the snake undulates past. The woman relaxes her arms. Harmless, this one. This time. She doesn't count the years, the way the strangers who have begun appearing on these shores count the years. Next season, a new traveler will appear, body covered with too much clothing, like all his kind. He will introduce himself as Menéndez de Avilés. The following season, the woman's mother will struggle to breathe for 5 nights, and then die. Others will develop the same strange sickness. Generations later, the weakened tribe will fall to the invading Uchises and Yamases. The survivors will flee to a great new city, called Havana, where most of them will die. The survivors of the survivors will return, thin and scarred. More clothed men will arrive to build first one hut, then another, along the sea-facing shore. Then great machines, of the kind the woman cannot imagine, will occupy this slender island. Men will lay down planks to ride their machines from the mainland. By then the woman's tribe will have vanished from this barrier island. Their 3 souls, eyes, shadows, reflections, will be left to wander without rest. The only evidence that they lived will be a mound of skulls that a future tribe of speculators will uncover, a half-day's walk north of the spot where, on this day of the distant past, the woman gathers her family's meal. To her, time is ripples on the water's surface, concentric circles that form and reform, the season of biting insects, the season of storms, the season of turtle eggs, the season of blue skies, and then the season of biting insects, the storms, the turtle eggs, the world turning again and again, just as every day the sun rises from the water and sets in the land. She can't know that the crocodiles and the rabbits will vanish. Snails and lobsters will no longer crowd the bay. Wildcats and bears won't hunt in the thickets. Deer will disappear, along with the pigeon plums and the palm nuts, the gopher apples. Water holes will dry up. Men will pull out the mangrove roots. The palmetto and sable will be replaced by coconut and avocado, making this a land of permanent occupation. Here, where the woman disturbs the burrowing creatures, in this same patch where she pauses to listen to the sea's roar, many years from now, workers will cut a path by hand. A street will cover the wound. A man named William will buy a plot, and an architect named Henry will design a 2-story building. He'll name it the Helena, after his mother, who told him stories to help him sleep. Neither William nor Henry, nor the day laborers who slashed their forearms on palmetto blades, nor the generations who will come to live in the Helena, can ever know about the woman collecting the eggs of nesting sea turtles this evening. And she, who turns herself now to the wind under a strangely yellowing sky, cannot know about them. But you, who exist outside of time, look. The setting sun drops its boulder of night. Within heartbeats, the land disappears. In the morning, out of the mangroves rise hundreds of new buildings, smooth and whiter than sand, dazzling in their monstrous beauty. Sophie, 1942. The building, begun in 1940, is not quite finished by the time Sophie moves into apartment 2B on January 8, 1942. The Helena announce the block letters over the entrance, and Sophie, who has just abandoned a classics degree, is amused. Fitting that the woman whose face launched 1,000 ships to war should ghost over this, the first Miami Beach apartment building requisitioned by the military. For the next several months, maybe years, no one really knows how long this war will last, the Helena will be home to 15 lieutenant colonels, majors, and captains of the U.S. Army Air Corps. At least one of them, Major Jack Appleton, directly assisting Lieutenant Colonel James Stowell, will arrive with a new bride. Apartment 2B is on the second floor, with windows on the north and south. It has a simple layout, typical of its time. The front door opens into the living room. Ahead, a narrow hallway leads to the bedrooms, a small one toward the back, and over the street a larger one that features a large built-in closet, an innovation that eliminates the need for armoires. Off the living room to the south is a small dining room, and behind that a galley kitchen with a door that leads to the back stairs. When Sophie moves in, apartment 2B still smells of fresh paint, and all the interior doors are missing. Eventually, she will grow tired of waiting for the army to hang doors, and she'll hang the door to the master bedroom herself. But at least there's some furniture. A davano in the main bedroom, and in the living room a reclining chair that Jack shipped ahead from San Antonio. The kitchen cabinets hold 2 pots and a cast-iron saucepan. The dishware is the kind you buy with green stamps, so Sophie's glad that, against Jack's wishes, she's brought her grandmother's china, decorated with small blue flowers, and the set of glow-tone tableware from Sears Roebuck they received as a wedding gift. The place is comfortable enough, and whatever the apartment's deficiencies, the view beyond its casement windows always delights. Miami Beach. This is the eerie thing. Last June in San Antonio, she and Jack had gone to the pictures to see Betty Grable and Don Amici in Moon Over Miami. Sophie was enchanted, and for days she sang, "Oh me, oh my, Miami," until Jack told her to shut up already. But that old fuddy-duddy couldn't stop her from dreaming herself at the Palm Grove, dancing in a gold lame halter, singing "Susanna is still in Havana." Poor Betty, stuck in Texas just like Sophie. Oh, to be in Miami. A silly dream. And then, like that, it happened. The Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor, and a week later Jack received his orders to lead the officers' school down in Miami Beach. When Jack told her the news, Sophie fainted straight away. She didn't dare believe in a power that could summon fate. Over those first days, before the recruits arrive, she and Jack lose themselves between the sheets at night, the windows opened to the balmy breeze. Soon, though, Jack is spending all his mornings out at the golf course, where every day new boys arrive for their training. Some nights he doesn't even return to the Helena, so Sophie spends the evenings on her own, strolling down to the beach, sometimes taking in a movie. Saturday nights, when Jack is home, they'll walk down to the new Clevelander Hotel for a gin and tonic. There is still space in this war for leisure. Distance dilutes violence, the way water tames alcohol, all of them waiting in a state of edgy inebriation. In the beginning, they are happy. The world roils, but the Helena's happy shell seems to enclose a remarkably egalitarian village. Here, every apartment is identical to every other one, laid out back to back in mirror images on either side of the supporting beams, each 2-bedroom, 1-bath leaning on its neighbor, dining room to dining room, kitchen to kitchen, up and down the stairs of the Helena, everyone a transplant from somewhere else, everyone united in the war effort. Some days, when there's a strong north wind, the smell of gunpowder fills the apartment, and the distant, low boom of practice artillery on the beach quickens Sophie's heart. She is the new wife of a handsome major, and his war has become hers as surely as her life has become his. Sophie is now inseparable from her husband. She has neither credit nor domicile in her own name, which, anyway, is no longer hers. When the Army transferred Jack to Miami Beach, Sophie did not hesitate to leave her studies, marry, and accompany her husband on the 2-day drive south. New adventures, the promise of a new apartment to decorate, a new landscape, a brand new self, fitted first to her husband and then to the wider calling of the war. A heroic life, such as any she could imagine for herself. Miami Beach resplendently green, amid so much preparation for war, so much life, such joy. The gaiety intoxicates her more than the Ronrico daiquiris at Mother Kelly's. Plans and men are afoot. The air itself reflects the light. And one night, by the beachcomber, they even see Clark Gable. Well, Sophie is certain it's Clark Gable. Jack says she's acting like a silly girl from Plano, which is what she is. And why was she looking around at the faces of the men anyway? It's true that Jack has his temper, but who wouldn't in his circumstances? When he returns from the war, things will be well. They'll start a family. Sophie will be more careful when she speaks. For now there are the evening strolls up Alton Road with Jack, who is so handsome, more handsome even than Clark Gable, with a way of being that bewitches everyone. That first month in Miami Beach unspools like a movie, a technicolor spectacle where distant fighting means suffering only in the abstract. And Sophie thinks she understands why men go to war, generation after generation. War is a thrilling break in the routine of every day. In February, a German U-boat strikes the Pan Massachusetts off Cape Canaveral, and blackouts hit the beach. When Sophie forgets to close the Venetians, Jack throws a glass at her. She kneels at his feet and weeps. Sometimes she has butterflies for brains. She's so very, very sorry. That night, for the first time that Sophie can recall, Jack begins to grind his teeth in his sleep. Sophie nudges him, and he's on her quick as a breath. "Stop! Stop! You're suffocating me!" she yells. Jack wakes, startled, but immediately covers her mouth with his hand.
"Shut up, you little fool. You want to wake the whole building?"
In the morning, he is his loving self again.
"My crumpet, my sweet, your dear Jackie adores you."
But the redness around Sophie's mouth doesn't fade until lunchtime. A week later, she dreams he does it again. She feels his body cover hers, but she cannot move. She cannot even scream. Paralysis overcomes her, and Sophie is certain she will die. Darkness as the pillow covers her face. Her throat closes against sound and breath, until at the last moment she wakes, gasping, Jack asleep quietly beside her. One morning in May, Sophie wakes before dawn. Some sound below, something moving in the street. The blinds are tight against the open window, but the breeze carries the promise of fire. The voices of men drift in with the smoke. She looks back to the room where Jack sleeps, and then to the blinds. She takes a deep breath and raises one of the slats.
"What the hell are you doing?" Jack's voice. Sophie stands, squares her body. Something's burning. Get back to bed.
No.
She follows him down the stairs and past the guards stationed in front. Neutral tanker, one of the boys tells them. German torpedoes hit it overnight. They run with the others. A crowd rims the shore. Sophie brings her hands to her mouth. The tanker drifts north, a giant torch in the water. Sophie loses Jack in the crowd. Crude oil, says an old man standing next to her. The war's come home, sister. Day breaks. A pale sky frames the black smoke. It billows and grows over the wounded ship, roiling like an inverted dark sea. The stench has made some people cover their faces with their shirts. Behind the burning tanker, the sunrise spreads its bloody light into the clouds, and the water undulates in shades of red and black. Everything is on fire. Not gay, not the quickened heart of adventure. The flames burn Sophie to her core, and she sees her girlish notions for what they were. Shame and fear turn her knees to ash. She kneels before the awful knowledge. War is a tunnel, bored through the darkness. All of us riding blind, unsure what awaits us in the shadows, until a flash reveals the faces of fiends. The front door closes, and absence returns to apartment 2B. But there is still someone here to record the fact, this unseen eye that moves across the floor as if it were a page, sweeps the bedroom, the naked walls, lingers at the single living room window with its blinds at half-mast, the drop of white paint beside the bathtub, the polished and sterilized kitchen cabinets, the sanded floors that will still smell of pine 2 months from now, when the new tenants move in. 4 p.m. Sounds fill the rooms. Listen, the complaint of old pipes, piano music that begins and stops and begins again, the tapping of thin branches on the windows, paint scraped on canvas, muffled voices through the walls, sometimes crying. Afternoon is ending, but the sunshine lingers, viscous and unsparing, the long day seeping into the corners of the apartment. Time, spooky and fickle. Not arrow, but snake. Eugenio, 1963. The great composer is dead. The news reaches Eugenio via his shortwave, the signal going in and out like a transmission from the beyond. Eugenio silences the radio and sits by the window, looking down at the street below. It cannot be. He was going to visit him after the new year. They had connected again. 2 old men now. Their shame a historical artifact, lost along with everything else. It cannot be. Dead, in Tenerife. Eugenio won't think of it. He won't accept it. It is not true. The regime playing its insidious games. After a while he stands and begins to dust. Eugenio Francisco Montes Bear has lived in apartment 2B since 1952, the year of the coup. In Cuba, he was a famous concert pianist, but now he plays mostly weddings and a few local gigs, Friday and Saturday nights at the swanky Delano Hotel and Cabana Club down the street, and Sunday afternoons at an old person's home a block from the Tower Theater, in what some people are starting to call Little Havana. Eugenio himself never calls it that. Those derelict streets full of barefoot vagabonds will never compare to his beloved Habana, with its colonnades and its parks, its grand gardens resplendent with palm and hibiscus. Eugenio never planned to stay this long in apartment 2B, with its crooked bedroom door and the depression in the kitchen floor collecting grime. Maybe a few months, while he waited for Batista to be deposed. And now a decade has gone by just like that, with his hardly noticing, one despot replacing another. After the missile crisis, Eugenio understood that the waiting would continue, maybe even for another decade. So he hung a mezuzah by the bedroom door, the cloth encased in a simple silver case, in memory of his mother. And finally, last year, he started looking for land to buy. Si Dios quiere, next month he'll move into his own little house, with its garden of overgrown bougainvillea. He plans to stay in apartment 2B only until the closing. The new land is out west, at the end of the world, but it is all he can afford. He's determined not to die a renter. He may no longer be able to count on the Montes fortune, but neither is he impoverished. Anyway, his needs are modest. A house where he can install his grand piano, a real piano, not this second-hand upright, and play it whenever he wants. A house full of windows. A house in his future, even though Eugenio feels himself more and more pulled into the past. No matter how young we are when we abandon our country, the years grow heavy beneath us. He is named after his father, the senior Eugenio Francisco Montes, who made his fortune as an art dealer and collector in the early days of the Republic. Paintings covered every wall of their townhouse in El Vedado. Even the bathrooms had art, prints that his father would swap out every few months. There wasn't time to grow attached to the paintings. Most soon returned to the gallery or were sold. Eugenio never understood why some paintings hung in their house and others in the gallery. His sister Mercedes loved the paintings, and from a young age could discuss the artists and the styles with a confidence that, to little Eugenio at least, seemed genuine. But he never felt at ease amid so much static color. It was a kind of noise that became even more unbearable after his mother died, the year Eugenio turned 12. A few months after her death, Eugenio gathered the courage to ask his father to please remove every painting from his room. The elder Eugenio stood in the doorway, arms crossed. Sternly, his son thought. Then, to the boy's surprise, his father walked to the bed and hugged him. His father held him a long time, without words. For the rest of his life, Eugenio was not able to recall another instance of such tenderness. The touch, so warm and so unexpected, loosened months of emotion. Eugenio allowed himself to cry softly at first, and then, as Papa held him, to sob openly, deliciously, sobs that emerged round and heavy from the same secret place as the music. His sweet and beautiful mother. Eugenio loved her with an intensity that has never diminished, ever, not a single bit. It was from her that he learned his love of music, beginning with the sound of her voice. Years ago, a British journalist in Havana asked Eugenio when he knew he was going to be a musician. He was asked this often. But this time Eugenio answered without his usual deliberation, without the need to sound intelligent. "Hearing my mother's voice," he said, "more precisely, her Spanish." Eugenio believed that hearing Spanish from an early age primed him for music. A ridiculous assertion. Every language shapes its great artists. But for Eugenio there was something in the Spanish that taught him melody before he could even speak. It was the Spanish language, as much as his mother's piano, that made him a musician. She had given a few concerts in her teens, and even after she gave up performing, music remained a source of joy she transmitted to her son. Music for her was not merely the melody that entered the ears. It was a solid thing with form and texture. And many times, after Eugenio finished practicing a piece, she closed her eyes and said, "Good, but the first movement should be more porous." Or, praising a performance of Bach, she said, "You hear that second variation? How it is just a bit more pebbly than the first?" Mozart was butter softening by the stove. Rachmaninoff was weathered wood, exposed nails. Eugenio never heard music the way his mother did. For her it was intuitive, some extra sense she had been born with, like those rare people who can see more of the color spectrum. But he spent enough of his boyhood at her side to appreciate that there was this other way to experience the notes. And with practice, he was able to approximate it. A kind of cheating, of course, but for his mother's sake, he trained himself to feel music, as if it were solid material beneath his fingertips. Mamma was an exuberant woman, and Eugenio saw her cry just once. She was at the piano, playing something new. Usually she played Chopin or Mozart, his father's favorites. But this afternoon she played a melody that seemed to come out of her being, one in harmony with whatever secrets she kept inside. Eugenio listened, and when, some moments into the playing, his mother's shoulders started to shake, he was so moved that he cried out. His mother turned suddenly, her face stained with tears. Eugenio ran to her, and she held him. "Niño mío," she murmured into his hair. She let him sit next to her as she took up the music again. Eugenio has not forgotten any of this. One does not forget one's first Mahler. They sat together as she played the piece again, and then a third time. Now and then the boy glanced at her, sitting straight in her chair, eyes opened, an expression he didn't recognize, but that he associated with the unfathomable world of adults. The notes spoke eloquently and effortlessly of a sadness without measure. And yet, something beautiful in the wilderness of that sorrow, some feeling that rose and fell within him, incomprehensible, and yet complete. He knew something was being transmitted that would forever mark the frontier between the boy he was and the man he was becoming. Mahler understood Morinia, his mother told him. The wandering, the illusion, that completion and return is at hand. That is what gives a work meaning. And here's a secret, mi niño, one you'll discover soon enough. The suspicion that one will never return, that the past will never be recovered, is part of the indescribable pleasure of Morinia. This was a year before his mother's death. Maybe his mother had tried to prepare him that afternoon, but Eugenio could not accept that the dead vanish forever. Even now the memory brought him fresh pain. We trail our pasts like a dragon's tail, Eugenio decided, wondering now and then at its destructive beauty. But with time, he came to see that the dark variations within a piece, the unexpected tonal shifts, the frustrated end, derive their sublime force from the bright opening and the normal human desire for completion. Now he understands why his mother transcribed the symphony for piano. Completion remains the specter beyond the last note. Was it the music, then, or the man that he fell in love with? The composer would never claim to be the equal of Mahler, but in Eugenio's mind, the two became one. Eugenio searches now through the albums on the shelf until he finds it. He hasn't played it in years. Summoning all the delicacy of touch that his mother taught him, Eugenio lifts the needle, letting it gently meet the slick outer band. First, the dull sound of metal caressing the groove guard, and then, like an apparition, the quivering first notes stitching themselves together. The fabric of sound envelops him, not a shroud, no, a curtain. The curtain that fluttered one afternoon in the window of their rented room in Vigo, where the composer would perform later that night. The curtain expanding in and out with sound, the low bass of ship horns off the harbor, the mocking cackle of seagulls. the comparsa of laughter in the street below, and then, in a moment that stopped time, the sonor...
Sample complete. Ready to continue?